municipalities. I just wanted to remind the council that under Massachusetts law, the way a municipal government is set up is that there's a legislative branch and an executive branch, and that some of the confusion that may have arisen, which I know the council knows, but some of the confusion that may have arisen in the prior discussion was what form of government the particular municipality has. So in the Plan E charter, the chief executive officer is the city manager, who is also the contracting authority. And also under the municipal code and charter, the city solicitor is both appointed by the city manager, but also serves as legal counsel to all departments, boards, commissions, as well as the city council. With respect to I believe that we had mentioned in our prior opinion that in Newton, or maybe I didn't mention that, I apologize. In the city of Newton, this issue was raised, and it's a slightly different charter, but the city, the mayor, excuse me, it's a strong mayor form of government, had a similar request from the city council there and informed the council that there would not be separate legal counsel provided because that would be a violation of the charter. The councilors brought up both Boston, which, as I previously said, there was a lawsuit that went actually to the appeals court, where the court confirmed that this would be a charter violation and that authority rests with the mayor. In Waltham, the city solicitor had given the city council that it was the mayor, not the city solicitor, city council, that had the authority to hire counsel. Same thing was true in Somerville, where we have confirmed that the city solicitor there gave a report to that city council that it was the mayor who had the authority to hire counsel, not the city council. Newburyport was brought up as an example of a city with separate counsel, and we were informed by the city solicitor in Newburyport that while the city council at one time had wanted separate counsel, the solicitor gave a legal opinion that would violate the municipal charter, and the council there did not hire their own counsel. They do hire outside counsel in that town to serve as municipal counsel, but it is under the direction of the mayor, not the city council. With respect to Methuen, which was raised as an example, that's a city where the city council appoints the city solicitor, but the city council itself does not have separate legal counsel. So they have used outside counsel to work on complex matters like collective bargaining, but it is not an appointment that would have been made by the mayor in that instance. So I wanted to confirm that we have carefully looked at the questions that were raised, and all of the information that we have reviewed is consistent with our original legal opinion. And so I wanted to confirm that to the council and hope that assuaged the council with respect to the concerns that they had raised. This is, in fact, not something that's within the council's authority under the charter. It would be a charter violation to dictate that. However, since we do want to be responsive to the city council and provide the best legal services available, we would hope that the council would rely on this office as designed, and to, particularly with the getting back up to being fully staffed, we would provide the services in a more efficient and responsive manner. But we also wanted to say that we would be willing to work with a modified version of what the council order was, in that if a majority of the city council votes to request that the city solicitor seek outside legal counsel assistance on a particular opinion or legislative drafting issue, we would then enter into an agreement with outside counsel. And as always in contracts for legal services, the outside counsel would report to the city solicitor, and the legal advice would come back through the city solicitor and through the city manager on the manager's agenda to the council. So I wanted to make that point in response to the council order. And of course, I'm available for any questions.
And whatever the financial ramifications are, we would forward that to the council for their vote. So I think it certainly addresses the concern of whether or not we can get to these items quickly. I think both myself and the city solicitor understand that concern and wanted to try to address it in the best way possible to make sure the council understands that we appreciate their concern about making sure these orders get turned around quickly. And if it means outside counsel, that we would be quickly able to do that. However, it would go through the city solicitor and myself.
Thank you. I have 4 counselors with their hands raised.
Mr. Chair.
Co-Chair Simmons, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that information is certainly helpful. Whereas I understand my colleagues' desire, I want to make sure that we're following not only the letter, but the spirit of the law. I'm sure it's no one's intention not to flagrantly break any municipal law, code, or edict. So this is helpful information. I'll look forward to hearing a more fleshed out report from the city manager, but I just want to, it said X% of the city's solicitor's budget, but I didn't know what that was, and I don't think the council knew. So now we have an idea of what that is, and we also have to share with that is the strong advisory from the city solicitor about what the way this order may be written does not conform to the letter and the spirit of the law. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield the floor.
And thank you, Co-Chair Simmons, because your question allowed the solicitor to clarify the office's position as well. So we have 4 counselors with their hands up. I'll list all of them in the order. Councilor Nolan, Councilor Zondervan, Vice Mayor Mallon, Councilor Sabrina Wheeler, and the mayor. So, Councilor Nolan, you're first, although your hand has disappeared. Did you wish to speak on this?
No, I think it had been up from before.
Oh, you're an honest.
I'll yield to the others, and then if what I wanted to say isn't said, I'll.
You're an honest person. You could have gotten a double there. So Councilor Zondervan is first. Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I would like to yield as well.
Wow, 2 in a row. That's great. Vice Mayor Mallon, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to take the floor. Thanks to my colleagues for yielding. I just want to make sure I understand the city solicitor's proposed modified version of the suggestion around having outside legal research. So if I understand it correctly, a counselor could bring forward, or a group of counselors could bring forward a request to the full city council to request a legal opinion or a drafting of perhaps zoning or an ordinance. If there's a majority of the city council that votes for it, then the city solicitor would engage outside counsel to do that work, and then it would come back into the city solicitor's office and then report back to the full city council through a city manager's agenda item. I just want to make sure that I understand that that's the process, and not that we would vote to move it forward, and then the city solicitor would come back and tell us how much it would cost, and then we would vote it again. I just want to make sure I understand the process that has been outlined here.
I can turn it over to Nancy, but there is outside counsel in the law office budget. So I think we would have some balances in there. So my intent would not to be to come back every time to have the council to vote on an appropriation. However, if this budget needed more money, just in general for all outside counsel, rather than just tying it to what the city council is, at some point we would come back for a recommendation that says, due to the things we're not doing, we'd like additional money. But no, I would not want to hold it up to sort of go, we'd come back for another vote, and we would try to move, but I'll leave that to Nancy.
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Manager. Yes, we certainly wouldn't want to take that extra step. That would be unnecessary. And as the manager said, we do have outside counsel budgeted in our budget already. I would just like to point out that to the extent that the council is concerned about the legal services that are being provided not being as responsive or as efficient or timely, I did want to point out to the council for your information that a lot of these issues do require a lot of research that includes looking at operational impacts and issues that relate to other departments' work. And so the benefit of having the legal research as well as drafting handled in-house is that often we are working with multiple departments when we get the research assignment or the legislation to be drafted. And we are also able to use our expertise as municipal lawyers who've looked at a broad range of issues over many, many years to make sure that we're giving the work product to the council that's most responsive, most up to date. It also often involves looking at similar issues around the country or around the state, often checking with state agencies about various issues that may arise. So we do very thorough work. I did want to confirm with what the vice mayor had said, that what we're proposing is that a counselor or more than one counselor would submit a proposed order. If the order is passed by majority vote at a public meeting to request a particular legal opinion or legislative services, that would then be forwarded to this office, and we would work with retaining outside counsel to provide the services and report back to the council. I did want to offer, however, that I think that may often end up taking more time than if we got right on it, particularly if it involves issues that we already have some familiarity with, and to the extent that it involves checking in with other departments. If it's a council order that involves multiple parts, not just legal drafting or research, but other operational aspects of working with the traffic department or the Department of Inspectional Services or zoning implications, these are all things that we're working on regularly in this office. And I think that in many instances, the work would be more responsive, more on point, more efficient and faster if it were done within the law department. So I am still very hopeful that this will not need to be used very often, because I do believe that we can work harder to both get back to the council more timely and reassure the council that we are able to do this work in a way that the council can feel good about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Glowa. I think we're having a couple parallel conversations here at the same time. I guess I'm intrigued by this modified version. However, I think there would have to be some work done up front by counselors who put in a motion for a majority vote by the council to say, I've spoken with the law department. This is the route that we've decided to go because there isn't capacity at the law department, or this isn't something they feel like they're specialized in. I just want to say that I think that there would have to be some preliminary work around capacity to go this route, so that it doesn't feel like we're being asked to vote on the floor for something that no one's ever had a conversation with the law department about. So I'm gonna yield the floor to my colleagues, because I see that there's a lot of questions, but thank you for clarifying this modified version and the route it would take through the council. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I wanted to say I agree with you that preparatory conversation is critical in your evaluation of what you want to do and knowing what the next step is for the solicitor. So I concur. Councilor Sabrina Wheeler is next, followed by the mayor. Councilor Sabrina Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, as always, I appreciate the solicitor's work and opinion and the work of the law department. In general, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like this proposal is an improvement over the status quo, as was the previous version that was presented at the council meeting a couple of weeks ago. I think Vice Mayor Mallon sort of made the same point. It would be helpful to see something in writing and to talk about it some more, because I'm still a little unclear about some of the details. the broad picture is that I continue to disagree that the city council couldn't request this under the charter. I don't believe it's a charter question, but a question of how the legislative authority of the city council is defined under state law. And that's how we've seen city councils in a variety of different cities with different charters have a budget for their own outside legal research. And so I don't see anything that would preclude us. And it would be great to have an outside legal counsel to give us an opinion on this. I think it really illustrates the need for it. So I'd still prefer to move forward with the city council having its own budget for outside legal research. I think it's our authority to approve or not approve the budget and to request it in there as a result. I also understand, though, that I'm one vote of 9 on this. I'm happy to talk more about this. But, as the Vice Mayor, I'm sure others will say, this is the first time hearing of it today. So I'm going to need some more time.
Again, I just want to state that we are not opposing giving outside counsel help. We're just saying it should come through the city solicitor. It can't be directed to the city council. So hopefully we've come up with a compromise. I understand your concern, but it's pretty clear cut that we think that would be a violation of the charter. And we think this is a solution that hopefully could get us to a compromised place. So that's why we wanted to bring that up today, but we can send something up on the agenda as well, if that's what the council would like to see as well.
Thank you both. The next speaker is the mayor, followed by Councilor Nolan and Councilor Zondervan. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Quick question. I know that Solicitor, you mentioned conferring with the various city departments, solicitor departments in some of the cities. And I think based on a conversation I had with the city manager as well, it's my recollection that there was an outside opinion given on this. And if that is the case, could the council have that just in writing? Whenever you do respond to the council, I think that would be helpful. And then, as has been mentioned, that the proposal that you've come up with would be helpful for the council to get, along with, the memo had some good suggestions around staffing and so forth. So I think having that all in one place as a responding to the waiting report would just be helpful because I think some of the those points that were brought up we should be implementing, because often it does come to it's more kind of understanding of, okay, I know we have this, there was an order put in and let's now timeline it, and we know the law department's working on it, but there's the communication hurdles that occur, and I think we need to work through those to move the work forward. So that's all I have, but it would be helpful to get if that you did get an outside opinion on this question, it would be helpful to have that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That adds some more detail to our discussion. Mr. Clerk has corrected me. He said Councilor Zondervan is actually before Councilor Nolan. So Councilor Zondervan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, thanks to the city manager and solicitor for the response. I continue to agree with my colleague. I think this is an improvement, and I do appreciate the compromise approach. But it still, I think, doesn't fully address the underlying question, because if it's legal for us to get pro bono opinions on matters as individual counselors, then I don't understand why it would not be legal for us to get opinions that we pay for. And I think having a majority vote approach can certainly be helpful in some cases, although I'm not sure how that's truly different from what we do now, because we currently request a legal opinion through a majority vote. So I guess we would explicitly say that we wanted an outside opinion if we wanted one. But I'm not even sure how we would make that determination. So I'm a little bit confused about that, but I guess we'll have other opportunities to discuss that. But I remain of the opinion that just as, you know, the manager has authorized the budget for the council office, and we have an executive assistant and receptionist through that budget, I don't see why we couldn't have some outside legal counsel through a similar arrangement. But I look forward to you know, implementing this, and we'll see how it works out. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nolan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Carlone and all my colleagues for addressing many of the questions. For me, I think it would be helpful to see the full one in writing. There had been a memo that included an attention to the idea of responsiveness to the council. And I can say, as someone who has sometimes reached out, and I definitely appreciate getting responses from the city solicitor. And there's been a couple times when a question's been raised is, should I ask that question if I haven't had a majority of the council? So for me, this is partly about getting and ensuring that we have an understanding of, if I have a question, I'm thinking, for instance, of putting forward something that raises a legal question, can I have the law department help me understand various things about it instead of having to put a motion on the council agenda to ask for some help? So that seems still a little murky to me and a little confusing, honestly, that the role of the city solicitor's office in helping us as we think through some of our own proposals that we are working on, if that makes sense. And I'm hoping that will be clarified in a write-up around this, but that is one of the areas that has been, I think, sometimes challenging from my side to know whether it's okay for me to ask. And also from the city side, does it make sense for them to respond? I'm just one counselor. It hasn't come from the whole council. So I think that's this area that sometimes is challenging. And if there was a clear, here's a legal researcher, anyone on the council can just ask them questions, that's the kind of thing that I think might help all of us be in communication about this, if that makes sense. I see the city manager nodding his head that might be
I think it's
area
that we can talk about. I think there is different interpretations, but I think the bottom line is we're here to help the city council get to where they want to go. And I think we can make sure that continues to happen. But I understand your question and we can clarify it.
Right. And I understand that if I ask a question, sometimes depending on how long it would take for the city solicitor's office just to not be sure if they should be, that makes sense to everyone. But the other question I had sometimes in the responsiveness, am I right in reading the budget that there are 3 vacant positions for assistant city solicitors in the office right now, which is what I saw in some of the budget backup?
Nancy, do you want to give a status of where we are with your positions?
Because that would certainly explain a challenge in terms of workload.
Sure. We have had a vacancy of one assistant city solicitor. That has now been filled. We had a vacancy of our first assistant city solicitor. That position has now been filled. So we're in the process of trying to get through the interviewing process to fill the new assistant city solicitor vacancy that was created when we promoted someone to the first assistant city solicitor, as well as the other assistant city solicitor position that was not actually a vacancy, but was approved in a delayed way because of COVID. So those 2 positions are in the process of being filled. And in this year's budget, there's also an additional position. And we've also been inundated with public records requests. So there's also a position for that. So we do believe that with this additional staffing and getting up to our full staffing, addressing those vacancies, the 2 of which, as I said, have now been filled, that would give us much greater bandwidth to make sure that we're addressing all the needs of our office promptly.
Great. Thank you. That explains it, because when I did review that, it seemed, that there had been those 3 full-time positions vacant. The first assistant city solicitor is listed as someone, maybe that's not the current person, but that was the budget backup from recently. And what I'm hearing is that once fully staffed, then and that's in process and very much on track to be fully staffed soon. The other question I want to address is in this area, there are obviously sometimes when there will be a somewhat different interpretation. Otherwise, we wouldn't have courts of law. There would just be, well, there's a law and that's it. And nobody would ever go to court because everyone sees it exactly the same way. This isn't about shopping around necessarily for second opinion. It's about understanding the full flavor of interpretations of various law when sometimes it's a little bit gray. So I do think this is a really positive step forward to both between the earlier memo about ensuring that we will clarify how it is that we can get some of the research help that will make our jobs easier to do, and also understanding as we move forward this idea of when it makes sense to have outside counsel. So I appreciate the work that's been done on this, and I yield.
Thank you, Councilor Nolan. There are no other hands up, and I think we've had a good discussion and had some further clarification, but we all know there'll be more work done in this area. So unless there are other comments, I will propose that I move to forward the department's budget section to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Mr. Clerk?
On that motion, Vice Mayor Matlin.
Yes?
Yes. Councilor McGovern.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Simmons.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sabrina Wheeler.
Present.
Present. Councilor Toomey.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zondervan.
Present.
Present. Mayor Siddiqui.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Carlone.
Yes.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 2 present.
Well, thank you all. We're going to take our lunch break now and reconvene at 10 to 1. So that's just under 45 minutes, unless I hear a reason to change that time. That's what we will do. I don't hear any comments, so let's reconvene at 10 minutes to 1. We're making good progress. We do have a few topics that have many questions coming up. Thank you all. I'll see you in 45 minutes.